The wealthy woman in the cream jacket had already decided Soren Cade did not belong near her row. She saw his worn flight jacket, his daughter's taped wooden airplane, and the economy boarding pass in his hand. When a seat mix-up delayed boarding, she spoke loudly enough for strangers to hear and treated the single father like the problem. 40 minutes after takeoff, a flight attendant ran toward the cockpit. The first officer had collapsed, and the captain needed a currently qualified airline pilot with the same aircraft rating to help manage the diversion. Soren opened his wallet. Behind a school photograph was an airline transport certificate and a current type rating for the jet carrying them. He left his daughter with the lead attendant, entered the flight deck, and took the empty right seat. The captain remained in command. Soren handled radios, checklists, navigation changes, and landing verification, while weather closed around the nearest airport. Back in the cabin, Vesper Wynn stared at the red wooden airplane she had mocked and realized the man she dismissed was helping bring every passenger home. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Soren Cade had learned not to dress like a pilot when he traveled with his daughter. Uniforms invited questions, favors, and stories he did not always want to tell. On that Monday morning, he wore a faded indigo Henley beneath an olive-brown leather flight jacket, charcoal trousers, and boots softened by years of cargo ramps. His 10-year-old daughter, Linnea, walked beside him through the terminal with a red wooden airplane clipped to her backpack. The airplane had one repaired wing. Linnea's mother, Anika, had carved it during the last winter of her life. She had been an aircraft mechanic with a habit of turning scrap wood into toys. After cancer took her, Soren repaired the wing with a narrow brass strip and clear resin. The little plane had survived 4 schools, 6 overnight childcare arrangements, and every flight Linnea had taken since. Soren flew Boeing 737 freighters at night. He held an airline transport pilot certificate, a current 737 type rating, and recent simulator checks. The schedule gave him school mornings with Linnea, but it also gave him red eyes, airport meals, and a permanent mark where his headset rested. They were traveling to visit Anika's sister, not to work. At the gate, a last-minute aircraft change separated their assigned seats. Linnea's boarding pass placed her in the first row of economy. Soren's placed him 3 rows behind. The gate agent promised the cabin crew would fix it after boarding. Vesper Wynn entered the aircraft ahead of them. At 36, she was the founder and chief executive of Aerial Thread, a scheduling platform used by airlines and cargo operators. Her software predicted staffing gaps, training demand, and crew availability. Investors praised it for turning thousands of human complications into clean green boxes. Vesper had spent 7 years proving she could lead an aviation company without being a pilot, engineer, or someone's daughter. That morning, she was flying to close the largest contract of her career. Her board expected the agreement signed by noon. A major client had threatened to delay after several pilots complained that the latest scheduling model penalized people who declined short-notice assignments. Vesper believed the complaints came from employees resisting efficiency. She took the aisle seat in the last row of business class, wearing a cream boucle jacket, forest green silk blouse, and black tailored trousers. A slim laptop case stood beneath her legs. When Soren and Linnea reached the curtain, boarding stopped. An older passenger had mistaken Linnea's economy seat for his own. A flight attendant began rearranging the row. Soren stepped aside so others could pass, but Linnea's backpack brushed the edge of Vesper's laptop case. The red wooden airplane tapped the leather. Vesper looked down. "Please control that," she said. Linnea immediately held the plane still. "Sorry." Soren checked the case for damage. There was none. "She apologized," he said. Vesper glanced at his worn jacket, then at the boarding line behind him. "Some people treat every delay like the cabin belongs to them." The words carried farther than necessary. Soren's expression changed, but his voice did not. "We were assigned separate seats. The crew is helping. Then, take the seat you paid for and let them move her later." Linnea's face warmed. The lead flight attendant arrived and placed Linnea beside Soren in economy, by moving a willing solo traveler forward. The solution took less than a minute. Vesper opened her laptop as if nothing had happened. Soren did not argue. He stored Linnea's backpack beneath the seat and showed her how the repaired wing was still secure. "She thinks your jacket is ugly," Linnea whispered. "Your mother thought it was ugly too." "Mom was right more politely." Soren smiled despite himself. The aircraft departed beneath low clouds. After takeoff, it turned east above a line of spring thunderstorms. Linnea worked on a puzzle book. Soren reviewed no flight plans and watched no cockpit displays. He was a passenger. He intended to remain one. In business class, Vesper joined a video call using the aircraft network. She told her operations team the client wanted proof that aerial thread could reduce reserve staffing without increasing cancellations. An analyst raised the caregiver bias complaint again. The model treated repeated declines as low flexibility, even when a pilot had submitted approved family care limits. That score affected training opportunities and preferred routes. Vesper asked whether the model violated any contract. The analyst said the answer was unclear. "Then it is not today's problem," Vesper replied. 29 minutes later, the first officer lost consciousness. He had reported feeling lightheaded, then stopped responding during a routine weather deviation. The captain took full control, engaged the autopilot, declared an emergency, and called the lead flight attendant. Cabin crew entered the cockpit, secured the first officer, and began first aid. A physician traveling in economy moved forward. The captain could fly and land the aircraft alone. What he needed was another qualified person in the right seat to manage radios, read checklists, program the diversion, and verify configuration while he handled weather and the medical emergency. The lead attendant made a precise announcement. She asked whether any passenger held a current airline transport pilot certificate and a 737 type rating. Soren closed Linnea's puzzle book. "I have both." Linnea looked toward the cockpit, then at him. "Are you working now?" "Only until they are safe." He pressed the call button and showed the attendant his certificate, company identification, medical certificate, and recent qualification record stored securely on his phone. The captain verified his identity through operations. Soren asked the lead attendant to stay with Linnea and gave his daughter the red wooden airplane. "Keep the wings level," he said. As he walked forward, Vesper looked up from business class. She recognized the jacket first. The cockpit door closed behind Soren. The captain remained in the left seat with both hands steady on the controls. The first officer had been moved to the forward galley, where the physician and cabin crew continued treatment. Soren sat in the right seat and fastened the harness. He did not announce that he could save anyone. He confirmed the aircraft model, current flight condition, fuel, weather, diversion airport, and the captain's plan. Then he read the pilot incapacitation checklist while the captain coordinated priority handling with air traffic control. The nearest suitable airport was 22 minutes away. Thunderstorms blocked the direct route. Air traffic control offered a path around the southern edge of the weather, but that approach required a runway change and a faster descent. Soren handled the radio. He entered the amended route into the flight management computer and cross-checked every waypoint with the captain. He pulled the landing data, monitored fuel, read the descent checklist, and confirmed the new runway's weather. The captain flew. Soren reduced the number of things the captain had to hold in his head. That was the work. In the cabin, Vesper watched the flight attendants prepare for landing. Linnea sat with the red wooden airplane between both hands. She looked frightened but not surprised by her father. "Does he do this often?" Vesper asked. Linnea studied her before answering. "He flies boxes at night." Vesper looked toward the closed cockpit door. "Why boxes?" "Because I have school in the daytime." The sentence struck Vesper harder than an accusation. Her software classified pilots who declined short-notice daytime training as less flexible. It did not know whether a pilot flew all night or waited outside a classroom at 3. It only knew how often the green box stayed empty. The aircraft entered moderate turbulence. Cabin lights flickered with the movement, though power remained normal. Vesper closed her laptop and helped secure a loose water bottle near the aisle. The lead attendant checked Linnea's belt and told her that Soren was assisting the captain, not replacing him. Linnea nodded. Dad says the safest person in the cockpit is the one who remembers it as a team. On the flight deck, Soren called each altitude and configuration change. The runway appeared through rain at 6 miles. Crosswind pushed from the left. The captain disconnected the autopilot and continued manually. Soren monitored speed, sink rate, and runway alignment. He confirmed gear down, flaps set, spoilers armed, and landing clearance received. The captain landed firmly near the center line. No one applauded in the cockpit. Soren read the after-landing checklist while emergency vehicles met the aircraft. Once parked, paramedics boarded for the first officer. Only then did the captain turn to Soren. "You made a difficult 20 minutes manageable." Soren accepted the sentence for what it was. "I had a good captain." The cockpit door opened. Passengers saw Soren emerge beside the lead attendant. Phones rose. He asked people not to photograph Linnea. Vesper lowered her own phone before its camera opened. At the gate, airline staff moved Soren and Linnea to a quiet operations room for statements. The red wooden airplane remained clipped to Linnea's backpack. Vesper waited outside. When Soren emerged, she approached without an assistant or camera. "I judged you," she said, "and I embarrassed your daughter." Soren looked at Linnea before answering. "Yes." Vesper did not explain that she was tired, under pressure, or protecting an expensive contract. "I am sorry." Linnea touched the repaired wing. "You thought he wasn't important because his jacket is old." Vesper met her eyes. "I did. It is still ugly." Soren almost laughed. Vesper's mouth moved despite herself. That may be true. The apology did not create instant forgiveness. Soren thanked her for making it directly and took Linnea to their hotel. Their original trip resumed the following morning. By then, a passenger video had spread online. It showed Soren walking toward the cockpit and Vesper staring after him. Commentators identified her company within hours. A second passenger described the boarding exchange. Vesper refused her communications team's suggestion to turn the emergency into a partnership announcement. "He is not a campaign," she said. She issued one factual statement, acknowledging her conduct, and asking that Soren's daughter not be identified. She did not name him. Then she returned to the complaint her analyst had raised. Aerial Thread's flexibility score had been marketed as neutral. It reduced access to preferred routes and training when a pilot declined short-notice work. Approved caregiving limits were stored in a separate system and never reached the scoring model. The result was predictable. Parents, people caring for older relatives, and pilots managing recurring medical appointments appeared less committed than colleagues with fewer external limits. Soren's cargo airline used the product. 6 months earlier, he had been denied a daytime instructor course because his flexibility score fell below the recommended threshold. Becoming an instructor would have brought more stable hours and fewer overnight trips. He had never known a software score influenced the decision. Vesper did. Her general counsel advised a quiet patch. Vesper remembered Linnea saying her father flew boxes because she had school. She ordered an independent audit and notified affected airline clients before the board could stop her. The largest client paused its contract. Aerial Thread's share price fell. Vesper's bonus was suspended, and the board placed product risk decisions under an independent committee. The audit found no evidence that anyone had programmed a rule against parents. It found something more ordinary. The company optimized what it measured and ignored what it did not. Thousands of pilots had been scored without a meaningful appeal process. Soren received notice from his airline that his instructor course decision would be reviewed. He did not contact Vesper. She did not ask him to praise the audit. Instead, the independent committee invited representatives from pilot unions, disability groups, caregiver associations, dispatch teams, and training departments to redesign the product. Soren agreed to join only if he was paid for his time and did not report to Vesper. The committee accepted. Their first working meeting took place 4 months after the flight. Vesper sat across the table from Soren. No one mentioned his jacket. The redesign took 7 months. The old system produced 1 flexibility score. The new version separated qualification, contractual availability, voluntary overtime, and approved personal limits. It required human review before a score could affect training or route access. Pilots could see the data used and appeal mistakes. Soren challenged every feature that treated an empty schedule box as a moral failure. Vesper learned to ask what the model could not see. Their working relationship remained formal. She did not flirt across a committee table or turn an apology into entitlement. He did not use the flight to win arguments that needed evidence. Sometimes they disagreed sharply. Vesper wanted fast alerts when staffing gaps appeared. Soren wanted safeguards against managers repeatedly pressuring the same pilots. The final design included both transparent requests, voluntary responses, and a record of repeated contact. The paused client resumed testing after the independent committee approved the changes. Aerial Thread paid to review 2 years of affected training decisions. Soren was offered a place in the instructor course. He accepted only after his airline confirmed the decision came from a new panel, not from Vesper. The course moved him toward a schedule with more evenings at home. On his first day as an instructor, Linnea attached the red wooden airplane to his new flight bag. The brass-repaired wing caught the hangar light. "Still ugly jacket?" Soren asked. "Historically ugly." He wore it anyway. The first officer from the passenger flight recovered from a cardiac rhythm event and returned to ground duties after medical review. He sent Soren a short note thanking him for helping the captain manage the diversion. Soren kept the note private. The public preferred a simpler story in which a poor father appeared from nowhere and flew an airliner alone. The truth was less dramatic and more valuable. A trained crew recognized incapacitation. A captain declared an emergency. Cabin staff protected a sick pilot and found qualified assistance. Air traffic controllers cleared a route. A type-rated passenger reduced workload. A team landed safely. Soren corrected the story whenever he was asked. At the end of the redesign, he resigned from the advisory committee. 3 weeks later, Vesper sent him a personal message. She asked whether he wanted coffee at the airport observation deck cafe. She made clear that no company matter was involved. Soren waited a day before answering. He said yes. Their first conversation outside work began with airplanes and ended with families. Vesper admitted that her childhood had been arranged around private terminals, assistants, and parents who believed inconvenience was a character flaw. She had built a company to eliminate uncertainty and slowly started treating people as if they were defects in the schedule. Soren told her that grief had made him protective of routine. Cargo nights were difficult but predictable. Becoming an instructor frightened him because it meant trusting a new life to remain stable. Neither confession excused them from responsibility. It let them understand the shape of it. They moved slowly. Vesper met Linnea at a public aviation museum months later, not at Soren's home. She asked permission before touching the red wooden airplane and listened while Linnea explained the repaired wing. "My mother made it," Linnea said. "Your father fixed it. We both keep it flying." Vesper looked at Soren, but did not turn the moment into a promise. Trust arrived through repetition. Vesper stopped using assistants to erase every inconvenience. Soren learned that accepting help did not make him less reliable. Linnea decided Vesper's shoes were impractical, but her museum snacks were excellent. A year after the emergency, the airline held a training day for cockpit and cabin crews. The captain from the flight led a pilot incapacitation exercise. Soren sat in the observer seat while new first officers practiced recognizing symptoms, declaring an emergency, coordinating with cabin staff, and managing workload. Vesper attended only as a software vendor under the same visitor rules as everyone else. During a break, the captain showed Linnea the flight deck from the doorway. She held the red wooden airplane level in one palm. "Do you want to fly one day?" he asked. Linnea considered the instruments. "Maybe." "Or fix them." Soren smiled. Anika would have liked that answer. The redesigned scheduling system launched that spring. It did not promise perfect fairness. It published limitations, preserved appeal records, and required airlines to review outcomes across caregivers and other affected groups. Vesper's company became smaller after losing one client, but more trustworthy. Her board restored none of the suspended bonus. She did not ask them to. On a clear Saturday, Soren, Vesper, and Linnea returned to the airport observation deck. Passenger jets moved across the runway, while cargo aircraft waited near distant hangars. Linnea set the red wooden airplane on the table. Its repaired wing had loosened again. Soren opened a small tool roll. Vesper held the light while Linnea aligned the brass strip. No one took over the task from her. When the resin was set, Linnea carried the airplane toward the viewing glass. Soren stood beside Vesper. "The first time you saw me, you thought I was delaying the cabin," he said. Vesper winced. "I remember. You were. I remember that too." He took her hand. Below them, a 737 turned toward the runway. The aircraft paused, received clearance, and accelerated into the clean afternoon sky. Linnea lifted the red wooden airplane until its repaired wing covered the real one in the distance. The moment did not belong to a secret hero or a humiliated villain. It belonged to three people who had learned that safe flights, fair systems, and second chances all depended on the same thing: seeing the human being inside the role.